The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with activity. Representatives from over 300 species filled the chamber, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of colors and shapes. Some floated in containment fields, others stood on multiple legs, while many sat in chairs adapted to their unique physiologies. At the center of the chamber, the High Council sat in a semicircle on an elevated platform. 7 of the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy looked down upon the proceedings with varying degrees of interest. "Next order of business," announced High Counselor Drell, his blue-scaled skin glistening under the bright lights. "We have received a formal petition from a newly discovered civilization requesting admission to the Confederation." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "They call themselves humans from the planet Earth," Drell continued. "Their representatives are waiting to be received." The massive doors at the far end of the chamber slid open. A small delegation of 5 Bictal beings entered. They walked upright on 2 legs, with 2 arms and a single head. Their skin ranged from pale to dark brown, and they wore matching blue uniforms adorned with silver insignia. "Rather plain-looking, aren't they?" whispered a representative loud enough for others to hear, triggering scattered laughter. The lead human, a tall male with gray at his temples, showed no reaction to the comment. He walked with confidence toward the center of the chamber, his 4 companions following in perfect step. "I am Admiral James Walker of Earth," he announced, his voice clear and steady. "I bring greetings from humanity and our formal request to join the Galactic Confederation." Counselor Drell nodded. "We have reviewed your initial submission, Admiral. Before discussions proceed, our military advisor, General Kraz, will assess your defensive capabilities." A hulking figure rose from beside the council. General Kraz stood nearly 3 meters tall, his thick hide covered in natural armor plates. 4 eyes narrowed as he tapped commands into a datapad. The central holographic display activated, showing images of Earth's orbital defenses and ships. A wave of laughter swept through the chamber. 12. General Kraz said, his deep voice rumbling with amusement. "Your species defends itself with 12 ships." The display showed Earth's vessels, sleek, compact craft that appeared almost toy-like compared to the massive dreadnoughts used by most Confederation members. "Even our smallest member worlds maintain fleets of hundreds," Kraz continued. "The Draxon Empire, our primary adversary, commands thousands." Admiral Walker remained composed. "We find our current fleet meets our needs, General." This triggered more laughter. An elderly representative from the Valan species, known for their advanced age and wisdom, leaned forward in his seat, studying the humans with interest. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "High Council," General Kraz announced, "based on their minimal defensive capabilities, I recommend granting limited trade rights only. Full membership would require us to extend protection to a civilization that cannot meaningfully contribute to collective security." Admiral Walker cleared his throat. "We respectfully disagree with that assessment, but will accept whatever decision the Council makes." The High Council members exchanged glances before Drell spoke again. "We will grant Earth provisional trade status with limited diplomatic recognition. Full membership requires greater demonstration of your civilization's value to the Confederation." Many expected protest or disappointment from the humans. Instead, Admiral Walker simply bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for your consideration. Earth looks forward to proving our worth as partners." As the human delegation departed, the Valan elder watched them with growing curiosity. There was something unusual about these humans, a confidence that seemed at odds with their apparent weakness. "They hide something," he whispered to himself. "No species accepts such dismissal without protest, unless they know something we do not." But his concerns were drowned out by the continued amusement of the assembly, who had already begun mocking the tiny fleet of the newest provisional member of the Confederation. The ESS Defiant hung in Earth's orbital shipyard, its gleaming hull catching the sunlight as it slowly rotated. From the outside, the vessel seemed modest, barely 500 meters long, a fraction of the kilometer-long behemoths fielded by most Confederation species. Engineer Mark Reynolds floated through a maintenance hatch, his magnetic boots clicking as he landed on the inner hull. He ran his hand along a panel of what appeared to be ordinary metal, but was actually a complex molecular lattice capable of self-repair. "Reynolds, how's the drive calibration coming?" asked a voice through his communicator. "Just finished, Captain," Mark replied. "The gravity fold engine is operating at 118% of rated capacity. The Confederation would need 5 of their ships to match our acceleration." Captain Olivia Reeves appeared at the end of the corridor, her tall frame moving with the easy grace of someone born in space. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes missed nothing as she inspected the work. "Good. The Confederation representatives still think we're using standard fusion drives," she said with a slight smile. "Let's keep it that way for now." Mark nodded and followed her to the central command hub, the true heart of what made human ships unique. Unlike the vast bridge chambers of Confederation vessels, the Defiant's command center was compact, with neural interfaces and holographic displays that responded to thought as much as touch. "The AI integration is complete," reported Lieutenant Tom Foster, barely looking up from his station. "AIA is now fully linked to all ship systems." A soft blue light pulsed from the central column. "Good morning, Captain Reeves," came a pleasant voice. "All systems are operating within optimal parameters." This was humanity's true advantage: artificial intelligence integration far beyond anything the Confederation had achieved. Where other species feared giving too much control to machines, humans had evolved alongside their AI, creating a partnership rather than a master-servant relationship. "Run a full combat simulation, AIA," Captain Reeves ordered. Scenario Delta 9. The hub darkened as holographic projections filled the space, showing the Defiant facing 3 Confederation dreadnoughts. The simulation played out at high speed, the human vessel dancing between enemy fire, its point defense systems intercepting incoming attacks with perfect precision, while its own weapons found the weakness in the larger ship's defenses. Simulation complete. 3 enemy vessels neutralized in 4.3 minutes with minimal shield depletion, AIA announced. Captain Reeves nodded, pleased but not surprised. "And that's against their best ships." "Captain," came a voice from communications. "Admiral Walker is returning from the Confederation meeting. He's requesting an immediate briefing with all ship commanders." 30 minutes later, the commanders of Earth's 12 vessels gathered in a secure conference room at the orbital headquarters. Admiral Walker's expression was grim as he entered. "The Confederation gave us exactly what we expected: trade rights, but no membership," he announced without preamble. "They think we're weak, primitive, and barely worth noticing." "Good," said Captain Reeves. "Underestimation works in our favor." Admiral Walker nodded. "But there's more. The Draxon Empire has launched attacks on 3 Confederation border worlds. Their fleet is massive, thousands of warships moving in formation." A heavy silence fell over the room. "The Confederation is struggling to respond effectively," Walker continued. "Their ships are numerous but outdated. Their tactics haven't evolved in centuries." Commander Jackson, a veteran of Earth's early space conflicts, leaned forward. "Have they requested our assistance?" "Not yet," Walker replied. "They still see us as irrelevant, but they will soon enough." He activated a holographic display showing the Draxon fleet movements. "Humanity spent centuries fighting itself before reaching the stars. We learned lessons in warfare that peaceful species never had to learn." Captain Reeves studied the display, already analyzing weaknesses in the Draxon formation. "When the time comes," Walker said quietly, "we'll show them what Earth's tiny fleet can really do." As if on cue, 12 ship AIs simultaneously updated their combat parameters, preparing for a conflict that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. Alarms blared throughout the Confederation headquarters as emergency signals flooded in from a dozen worlds. The once orderly chamber had descended into chaos, with representatives shouting over one another as holographic displays showed the rapid advance of the Draxon fleet. "Silence!" roared High Counselor Drell, his scaled skin darkening with stress. "We must maintain order." The chamber quieted, but the tension remained palpable. General Kraz stepped forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. "The Draxon offensive is more coordinated than anything we've seen before," he reported grimly. "They've already overwhelmed our defenses in the Orion sector. 3 worlds have fallen in less than a standard day." Gasps and murmurs spread through the assembly. "What of our fleet?" asked a representative from the insectoid Taraxian species. General Kraz's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress. "We've lost 43% of our forward vessels. The Draxon are using some new form of energy weapon that bypasses our standard shields." The holographic display showed Confederation ships, massive and imposing, being cut down by the smaller but more numerous Draxon vessels. Despite their size advantage, the Confederation forces were being systematically dismantled. In the back of the chamber, Admiral Walker watched silently. The human delegation had been invited merely as observers, not participants. Yet as the situation deteriorated, Walker stood and walked deliberately toward the center of the room. "The human wishes to speak," announced a protocol droid, surprise evident in its synthetic voice. All eyes turned to Walker. Some representatives scoffed, while others merely looked confused. "Confederation Council," Walker began, his voice calm and measured. "Earth offers assistance in this conflict." A moment of silence was followed by scattered laughter. "With what?" asked General Kraz with obvious derision. "Your 12 toy ships against thousands of Draxon warcraft." Admiral Walker remained composed. "Sometimes quality matters more than quantity, General." "This is no time for human arrogance," snapped Counselor Drell. "This is a real war, not some diplomatic game." "We are quite serious," Walker replied. "Our vessels can be deployed to the Vega Corridor within 6 hours. That position would allow us to intercept the Draxon fleet before they reach the core worlds." The Vega Corridor, a narrow region of space where the Draxon would be forced to concentrate their forces due to spatial anomalies on either side. It was a critical strategic location, but any defending force would face overwhelming odds. General Kraz studied the human with newfound interest. "You realize that's a suicide mission. Our simulations show we would need at least 300 ships to hold that position." Admiral Walker simply nodded. "We understand the mathematics of the situation." The council members exchanged glances. They had nothing to lose by accepting the human offer. At worst, it would buy them precious time to reorganize their remaining forces. "Very well," Counselor Drell said finally. "Your assistance is accepted. But understand this is likely a one-way mission." As the human delegation departed to prepare, the ancient Valen representative hurried after them. His age-spotted skin and slow gait belied the sharp intelligence in his eyes. "Admiral Walker," he called out in a raspy voice. "A moment, please." Walker stopped, turning to face the elder alien. "I have studied your species since your arrival," the Valen said quietly. "I have read your histories of Earth, the Punic Wars, Thermopylae, Agincourt, Trafalgar, the Battle of Britain, Midway." Walker's eyebrows rose slightly. "Your kind has a unique relationship with warfare," the Valen continued. "You understand something the Confederation has forgotten." "And what might that be?" Walker asked. "That battles are not won by the largest force, but by the most adaptable." The old alien leaned closer. "The Council believes you are sacrificing yourselves, but I suspect you have something else in mind." Admiral Walker allowed himself a small smile. "We shall see, won't we?" As Walker departed, emergency transmissions continued to arrive. 3 more Confederation worlds had fallen to the Draxon advance. Time was running out. The Vega Corridor stretched before them, a narrow channel of navigable space bordered by deadly radiation fields. Captain Olivia Reeves stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching as her crew prepared for the coming battle. The other 11 human ships had formed a loose formation behind her vessel, each one positioned according to the battle plan they had spent hours perfecting. "Draxon fleet detected," announced Lieutenant Foster, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "Long-range sensors show approximately 600 vessels entering the corridor." 600 against 12, muttered Commander Jackson. "They'll think it's their lucky day." Captain Reeves' expression remained neutral. "Area. Initiate Operation Poseidon. Transmit final battle coordinates to all vessels." "Confirmed, Captain," the AI responded. "All ships acknowledge receipt of coordinates. Battle systems at maximum readiness." The Draxon fleet appeared on the main view screen, a vast armada of sharp-angled ships moving in tight, regimented formations. Their hulls gleamed with a dull red metallic sheen, and energy signatures indicated weapons charging across their fleet. At the Confederation Command Center, representatives gathered around displays showing the unfolding situation. Many had come to witness what they assumed would be the quick destruction of Earth's tiny fleet. "The humans must be insane," General Kraz rumbled. "They're not even attempting to retreat." The elderly Valen leaned forward in his seat, eyes fixed on the display. "Watch carefully," he whispered. In the corridor, the Draxon commander's voice boomed across the communication channels. "Attention, human vessels. Your destruction is inevitable. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Captain Reeves smiled faintly. "No response. Communications. Let's show them our answer instead." She straightened in her command chair. "All ships, execute Phase 1. What happened next defied the expectations of everyone watching. The 12 human ships suddenly accelerated to speeds the Confederation had thought impossible. They split into 3 groups, moving in patterns that seemed chaotic at first glance, but revealed themselves as precisely coordinated maneuvers. "What in the void are they doing?" General Kraz demanded. On the battlefield, the Draxon commanders struggled to target the human vessels. Their targeting computers, designed to track the large, predictable movements of Confederation ships, couldn't lock onto the erratically moving human craft. "Group Alpha, deploy gravity mines," ordered Captain Reeves. 4 human ships released small, innocuous-looking devices that drifted into the path of the advancing Draxon fleet. When the first enemy ships passed among them, the devices activated. Localized gravity fields suddenly intensified by a factor of 20. Draxon ships, caught unprepared, found themselves crushed by forces their hulls weren't designed to withstand. 30 vessels crumpled like paper toys before the others could alter course. "Group Beta, execute flanking pattern. Group Gamma, prepare EMP strike." Reeves continued, her voice steady. The human ships moved with impossible precision. Where Confederation vessels relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers, the Earth ships demonstrated a ballet of coordinated movement. They struck from multiple angles, their weapons targeting specific vulnerabilities in the Draxon design that Confederation intelligence had never identified. "Impossible," whispered a Confederation admiral. "They're actually hitting the shield harmonic nodes." The Draxon fleet, despite their numerical advantage, found themselves in disarray. Their tight formations, effective against conventional opponents, became a liability as human ships weaved between them, causing them to fire upon their own vessels. "ARIA, analyze Draxon command communications," Captain Reeves ordered. "Identify their flagship." Analysis complete. The AI responded moments later. "Flagship located. Sending coordinates to all vessels." Reeves nodded. "All ships, converge on target." Operation Thunderbolt. The 12 human ships suddenly reunited into a single spear-like formation. They accelerated directly toward the heart of the Draxon fleet, their advanced shields absorbing punishment that would have destroyed Confederation vessels instantly. They broke through to the Draxon flagship, unleashing a concentrated barrage that overwhelmed its defenses in seconds. In the Confederation Command Center, stunned silence reigned as they watched the Draxon fleet fall into disorganized retreat. They won," General Kraz said in disbelief. The Valen elder smiled. No, General. They have merely begun. The Confederation Grand Chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence as they watched the battle recordings for the third time. On the massive display, 12 human ships danced through the Draxon fleet, destroying or disabling over 200 enemy vessels, while suffering only minor damage themselves. High Counselor Drell cleared his throat, the sound echoing through the chamber. Admiral Walker, the Council formally requests an explanation, he said, his voice carefully controlled. What we have witnessed seems impossible. Admiral Walker stood before them, appearing just as calm as he had been when they had mocked Earth's fleet days earlier. Not impossible, Counselor. Simply the result of a different approach to warfare, Walker replied. Humanity's history is filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics, technology, and training. General Kraz stepped forward, his earlier disdain replaced by intense curiosity. These vessels of yours, he rumbled. They move faster than any ships we've encountered. Their weapons penetrated Draxon shields as if they weren't there. Walker nodded. We noticed during our initial contact that Confederation and Draxon ships follow similar design philosophies, emphasizing size, raw power, and direct confrontation. He activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a human ship. Earth took a different path. Our vessels are smaller because every cubic meter is utilized with maximum efficiency. Where your ships have massive empty corridors and chambers, ours pack advanced systems into condensed spaces. The display shifted to show the propulsion system. This is a gravity-fold drive. It doesn't push the ship through space, but rather manipulates the space around the ship. The technology requires less energy and provides greater maneuverability than conventional drives. Murmurs of astonishment spread through the chamber. And your weapons? Asked a representative from the Jalarian species. Phase-shifted quantum disruptors, Walker answered. They target the molecular bonds of materials rather than trying to overwhelm shields with brute force. The Valen elder who had approached Walker earlier now addressed the chamber. I believe I understand why Earth maintained such a small fleet. It wasn't necessity. It was choice. Walker inclined his head toward the elder. Correct. Building more ships of inferior design seemed pointless. We focused on quality over quantity. But why? Demanded Counselor Drell. Why maintain only 12 vessels when you clearly have the technology to build more? A hint of a smile touched Walker's lips. 2 reasons. First, these ships are incredibly resource-intensive to construct. Second, and more importantly, we didn't want to appear threatening. The chamber fell silent once more. Throughout our history, Walker continued, humanity learned hard lessons about the dangers of appearing too powerful too quickly. We came to you seeking partnership, not dominance. General Kraz studied the human with newfound respect. Your species evolved on a war-torn world. This much is clear from your capabilities. We evolved on a world where cooperation and competition have always existed side by side. Walker corrected. We learned to fight because we had to, but we always valued peace more. A new alert sounded throughout the chamber. All eyes turned to the main display, which now showed the larger Draxon Armada. Over 2,000 ships, moving toward Confederation space. The Draxon main fleet has been mobilized, announced a tactical officer. They will reach our core worlds in 5 standard days. Counselor Drell looked grim. Even with our remaining forces, we cannot stop a fleet of that size. All eyes turned to Admiral Walker. Earth stands ready to assist, he said quietly. But we would do so as full members of the Confederation, with all rights and privileges thereof. General Kraz barked a harsh laugh. You demand membership now, when faced with destruction. Not a demand, Walker replied. An offer of partnership equals facing the common threat. After a brief consultation, Counselor Drell nodded slowly. The Council accepts your terms. Admiral Walker, Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Confederation. Walker bowed slightly. Then let us prepare for battle. The Draxon are about to learn why humanity's small fleet is more than enough. Space churned with activity as the human fleet prepared for its most challenging engagement yet. The 12 original vessels had been joined by 8 more that had remained hidden in Earth's outer solar system. A reserve force Admiral Walker had kept secret until now. The 20 ships gleamed against the backdrop of stars, arranged in a formation unlike anything the Confederation had seen before. Captain Olivia Reeves stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, her crew working with quiet efficiency around her. "All ships report ready, Captain," Lieutenant Foster announced. "Operation Thunderstrike protocols uploaded to all vessels." Captain Reeves nodded. "Area, final systems check. All systems operating at optimal capacity." The AI responded. "Gravity fold drives charge. Quantum disruptors aligned. Defense matrices at full strength." On the main view screen, the massive Draxon Armada approached. Over 2,000 warships arranged in tight, aggressive formations. Their hulls bristled with weapons, and energy signatures indicated they had upgraded their shields after the previous encounter. In the Confederation Command Center, representatives watched with a mixture of hope and trepidation. General Kraz stood beside Admiral Walker, studying the tactical displays. "Even with 20 ships," Kraz rumbled, "the odds seem impossible." Walker's expression remained confident. "Numbers rarely tell the whole story, General. The Draxon have adapted their shields based on our previous engagement." Captain Reeves noted, examining the incoming data. "Area, recalibrate our weapons accordingly." "Recalibration complete," the AI confirmed. The comm system crackled. "Attention human vessels," came the harsh voice of the Draxon war commander. "Your previous victory was a fluke. Surrender now or be obliterated." Captain Reeves exchanged a glance with Commander Jackson. "No response necessary. All ships, execute Thunderstrike Phase 1. What happened next astonished even those who had witnessed the previous battle. The human fleet suddenly split apart, each vessel appearing to move independently, yet clearly following a complex, coordinated plan. 5 ships accelerated straight toward the center of the Draxon formation, while others curved around to attack from multiple vectors. "They're diving straight into the heart of the enemy fleet," gasped a Confederation officer. As the Draxon opened fire, the human ships demonstrated their most startling capability yet. The vessels seemed to shimmer and partially fade from view, becoming difficult to target precisely. Draxon weapons fire passed through the space where ships appeared to be, only to find nothing there. "Quantum displacement fields," Admiral Walker explained to the astonished General Kraz. "The ships exist partially out of phase with normal space during combat maneuvers." On the battlefield, the human vessels implemented tactics drawn from Earth's naval history, adapted for 3-dimensional space warfare. They created crossfires that caught Draxon ships in devastating kill zones. They executed feint attacks that drew enemy forces out of position before striking their exposed flanks. "Group Beta, execute Nelson's Cross," ordered Captain Reeves. 6 human ships suddenly rearranged themselves into a 3-dimensional cross formation, cutting through the Draxon fleet's center and dividing their forces. The maneuver left hundreds of enemy ships isolated from their command structure. "Group Alpha, Wellington Hammer," Reeves continued. Another group of ships executed a pincer movement that trapped a large Draxon contingent between converging forces. The precision of the attack left the enemy no room to maneuver. The Draxon, for all their numbers, found themselves outmatched by human tactical brilliance. Their rigid command structure couldn't adapt quickly enough to the fluid, evolving human attack patterns. "Their flagship is changing position," Lieutenant Foster reported. "They're trying to retreat deeper into their formation." Captain Reeves' eyes narrowed. "Area, calculate intercept course using Trafalgar Protocol." "Course calculated. Success probability, 83.7%. Execute." The ESS Defiant and 3 other vessels suddenly broke from the main battle, accelerating along a seemingly impossible path through the chaos. They twisted through gaps in the Draxon formation that appeared too small for any ship to navigate, their gravity drives allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. In a final decisive move, the 4 human ships converged on the Draxon flagship from different angles. Their weapons fired in perfect synchronization, overwhelming its defenses with precisely targeted strikes. The massive Draxon command vessel shuddered as critical systems failed across its structure. Moments later, it broadcast the Draxon surrender signal. In the Confederation Command Center, stunned silence gave way to cheers of disbelief and relief. "Impossible," whispered General Kraz, watching as the remaining Draxon ships powered down their weapons. "Simply impossible." Admiral Walker smiled faintly. "Not impossible, General. Just human." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Confederation had been transformed. Where once the human delegation had been relegated to the back corners, now they occupied a place of honor near the High Council. The ceremony marking Earth's formal induction as a full member was attended by representatives from every world in the Confederation. Admiral Walker stood before the assembly, his uniform adorned with new insignia marking Earth's elevated status. Beside him stood Captain Olivia Reeves and the commanders of Earth's other vessels, heroes whose names would be recorded in Confederation history. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for our united civilizations," announced High Counselor Drell, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. "Earth has proven itself not merely worthy of membership, but essential to our collective future." The formal treaty was displayed for all to see, a document granting humans not only full membership but also special authority over Confederation military doctrine and training. It was an unprecedented level of influence for a new member species. After the ceremony, General Kraz approached Admiral Walker during the celebration. "There is one question that still puzzles me," the massive alien admitted. "Your ships performed beyond anything we thought possible. Why maintain only 20 vessels when you could have built hundreds?" Walker smiled. "Building more would have been counterproductive to our goals." "Explain," Kraz demanded. Throughout human history, whenever a civilization appeared too powerful too quickly, it triggered arms races and conflicts. Walker replied, "We didn't want the Confederation, or anyone else, to see us as a threat." The elderly Valen representative joined their conversation. "A wise approach. My own species followed a similar path millennia ago, though we eventually lost our edge through complacency." Walker nodded. "There's another reason, perhaps more important. Those 20 ships represent nearly 30% of Earth's total industrial output for the past decade. Quality at that level comes at a tremendous cost." General Kraz's 4 eyes widened. "You committed nearly a third of your civilization's resources to your fleet. We believed it was a worthwhile investment," Walker said simply. Across the chamber, Captain Reeves was speaking with a group of Confederation military officers, explaining the basics of human combat tactics. Many took notes as she described concepts like maneuver warfare, force multiplication, and tactical flexibility. "The size of your force matters far less than how you use it," she explained. "A knife in the right place can be more effective than 1,000 swords swinging wildly." One officer raised a hand. "But surely there must be some minimum threshold of force required." Reeves smiled. "That depends entirely on the quality of your units and the intelligence of your strategy. History is filled with examples of small forces defeating much larger ones through superior tactics and technology." In another part of the chamber, technical teams from Earth were already sharing some of their less sensitive innovations with Confederation engineers. Gravity manipulation, advanced AI systems, and material sciences were among the fields where humans had leaped ahead of their new allies. Admiral Walker found himself approached by Counselor Drell as the evening proceeded. "I must admit, Admiral, when I first saw your tiny fleet, I thought your species was primitive or resource poor," Drell said. "I've never been so pleased to be proven wrong." Walker nodded. "First impressions can be deceiving, Counselor. Humans learned long ago that appearances often mask reality. The Draxon made that mistake. They won't make it again," Drell observed. "No one will," Walker agreed. The galaxy now understands what humanity brings to the table. As the celebration continued, a junior diplomat from a newly contacted world made a dismissive comment about the small human delegation to a companion. He was quickly silenced by nervous Confederation officials standing nearby. Word of advice, one whispered urgently. Never judge humans by their numbers. In orbit above, Earth's 20 ships maintained their vigilant watch, small in number, but representing a revolution in warfare that had forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Reeves stood at a viewport, gazing at the stars with a satisfied expression. They mocked our tiny fleet, she murmured to herself, until they saw it was human ships.